last week we were talking about the passing of Jerry West and the logo. And if Major League Baseball had a logo, if they were going to take a silhouette of a player and make it part of their logo, you know, I know there is one of a player like the side of their helmet in the old school Major League Baseball logo. But if they used an actual player, I think it would be Willie Mays. For many people, the most beautiful ball player ever, the most fluid ball player ever, the guy who could do it all, the ultimate five-tool player, passing away at the age of 93 last night, the oldest living Hall of Famer, no longer with us. And for so many folks spanning multiple generations, if you ask them the greatest baseball player they ever saw, many of them would say Willie Mays.
Absolutely.
The kid from Alabama who made his way to New York City and then to San Francisco and back to New York City before finally winding up in Cooperstown. Again, passing away at the age of 93. And for those who, you know, I'm going to try and do him a little bit of justice to explain just how great he was. Certainly since when he retired, I was 4 years old. So I never really saw Willie Mays play. Yeah. I've only heard the stories. I've only read the stories. And I've also spoken to people who saw him. Got a chance to briefly meet him and shake his hand at the Otesaga Hotel in Cooperstown, New York, when I was there covering it for ESPN. And it was basically like a night at the museum the night before the Hall of Fame induction ceremony in that meadow in that jewel of an upstate New York city, town, hamlet. And so that's essentially the only time I've really ever gotten to interact with Willie Mays and just say hello. But you just take a look at his resume.
It's insane.
It is.
It's insane.
24-time All-Star. Now, it's second all-time. They used to have the All-Star game, by the way, twice a season, which is why that number's it's 24 times. And he played from 1951, missed 2 seasons, but when you'll hear why, and then retired in 1973. He led the NL in home runs 4 times, slugging 5 times, hit 301 in a single season with 100 runs batted in that same season. He did that 10 times. He led the National League in stolen bases 4 times, triples 3 times, runs twice. First ever player to be 30-30, Willie Mays. First player ever to have 300 home runs and 300 stolen bases in a career, Willie Mays. First right-handed hitter to reach 600 home runs, Willie Mays. He won the Gold Glove 12 straight times after it was created in 1957. That's a record for outfielders. He was the 1951 Rookie of the Year after he was brought up in the minor leagues by the Giants after he was signed out of the Negro Leagues once he was graduated from high school, famously playing for the Birmingham Black Barons. 1951, he was called up, and he was part of a Giants team that fell 13 and a half games behind the Brooklyn Dodgers, only to go on a tear at the end of the season and tie the Dodgers, forcing a 3-game playoff that the Dodgers won with the famous shot heard around the world. Bobby Thompson hit it with Willie Mays on deck.
Wow.
Either way, they were winning that game.
They made the World Series, and he played against the New York Yankees and his childhood hero, Joe DiMaggio. And when he took the field in center field with Monty Irvin and Hank Thompson, in Game 1, that comprised the first ever all-black outfield in the history of Major League Baseball. Game 5, he hit a fly ball that was only famous for the fact that Mickey Mantle stepped into an open drain pipe in the outfield, chasing it, tore up his knee that affected the rest of his career. And that was Willie Mays' first season in Major League Baseball. He was drafted into the Army for the Korean War in 1952, and in the 1952-1953 Major League Baseball seasons, he was in the Army and played occasionally for military teams that were dotted with other Major League stars, but not as great as Willie Mays. At the time, Willie, in those games, learned how to catch a baseball with his back to the plate, over the shoulder. He learned how to basket catch, apparently, in the Army, and that came in handy in 1954, his first season back in the major leagues. He made the All-Star game for the first time, and then it was the first of 24 straight times. He homered on opening day and became the first player with 30 home runs before the All-Star game that year. He had 36 home runs through July 28th when his manager, the famed Leo DeRocher, apparently told him to hit fewer home runs to get on base more. So Willie Mays hit 5 home runs the rest of his way and then upped his average 19 points to hit .345 and win the Giants' first batting title in 24 years. He won the MVP, only time he did that in New York, first of 2 times in his career. Won the MVP, won the pennant, and then won the World Series, the Giants' first in 21 years, and only one that the franchise had won until Bruce Bochy and the crew did it 3 times recently. But, of course, that World Series is also most famous for what he did in Game 1 when Vic Wertz of Cleveland, in the old Polo Grounds. It's a weird setup. If you look at the dimensions of the Polo Grounds, it kind of looks like in a basketball lane with the arc at the top of the key with some wings on the side. It would go flat from the right and center, right and left field foul poles into sort of like that. I mentioned the top of a key of Major League Baseball. It was less than 300 feet from home plate to the foul poles, and then it would go all the way back 483 feet.
It's so far.
To center field, and Vic Wertz sent one damn near to the wall, and Willie Mays, with his back to home plate, made a mad dash, and, legend has it, he ran the last 20 to 30 feet without even looking for the baseball because he knew he had to get back fast. We have the call. Jack Brickhouse famously at the microphone for this all-time moment.
There's a long drive, way back in center field, way back, it is. Willie Mays just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
Yeah. Greatest catch of all time.
Wow.
I mean, there's so much hyperbole that's made and mentioned, right? In our world, and exaggeration and best ever goats and things like that. But that catch.
Everybody knew that catch. When I was a kid in the 80s, we used to talk about doing the Willie Mays catch over our shoulder basket. It's the most famous, one of the most iconic plays in Major League Baseball history.
That we'll never see again because there will never be a stadium with the dimensions of the Polo Grounds or potentially a player with the talent of Willie Mays to run back like that and catch it. They won that World Series, and then Willie and the Giants moved west. His legend grew every single year. They made the World Series in 1962. He lost in 7 games to the Yankees. He made one more World Series in his career, the last season of his illustrious career when he joined the Mets. And the Mets made the World Series in 1973 and lost in 7 games to the famed Oakland A's and Reggie Jackson, who's also one of the many star players who have played in the famed Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama, where on Thursday the Giants and the Cardinals are slated to play a baseball game and have been all year to celebrate the Negro Leagues and those stars who also followed the Negro League iconoclasts into Major League Baseball, like Reggie Jackson. And some other all-time greats had played there. Hank Aaron, Satchel Paige, and Willie Mays, who was a lot of hope for his attendance, but he said earlier in this week that he wouldn't make it. And now he's no longer with us. And I say to everybody out there who saw him play, and, I mentioned earlier this year that, when Michigan won the national championship for football, I came on here and say sports sometimes is the marking of time for a lot of people. And for a lot of people who watched Willie Mays play and remembered that golden age of baseball where he joined Mickey Mantle and Stan Musial and Joe DiMaggio and the like, and then, of course, became the face of the sport to lead it into the 50s and 60s in a golden age where there were no exit velocities and, the Polo Grounds wasn't because it was sponsored by Ralph Lauren. You know what I mean? Like, it was a different time for so many folks. And they remember it fondly, and they'll never forget what Willie Mays made them, how it made them feel. And then, of course, telling generations how great Willie was. And for whom the passing of Willie Mays is now a very sad marking of time. For those folks, and of course those who Willie touched, family members, members of the Giants organization and the Mets and everyone else in Major League Baseball and Cooperstown, New York, and the Hall of Fame and Museum up there, I send my condolences. The Say Hey Kid is saying hey now upstairs to all of his colleagues who passed before him. And we say rest in peace. The great Willie Mays.